Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The maps were laid out, intel briefed, radios checked. A full Marine recon platoon, prepping for a classified join-up near Kandahar. And Elena Vasquez, the 22-year-old supply clerk, was sitting quietly in the corner. No one asked her a question. No one met her eye. No one expected anything of her. But there was something she hadn't told them. Not yet dot at 0847, the mortar hit the motor pool. The explosion lifted a Humvee into the air like it was made of cardboard, flipping it end over end before crashing down in flames. Elena's ears rang. Dust blinded her eyes. The concussion wave slammed her against a concrete wall, bruising bone and knocking breath from her lungs. Then came the gunfire, sharp, close, organized. Not random skirmishes. This was coordinated, measured, calculated. From her position in a half-destroyed schoolhouse, walls still painted with children's faded Dari alphabet letters, Elena watched hell unfold. The first Marine sniper went down near the Combs bunker. The second caught a burst of fire while trying to drag him back. The third was just a kid from Ohio. Elena had never learned his name. His body spun mid-run, crumpling in the dirt. 3 shots. 3 kills. Clean. Fast. The enemy knew what they were doing. Elena's M4 carbine sat by her knee. Standard issue. She could have grabbed it. Fired blind through the window. Died like the rest. But something made her stop. A flicker of black cloth through shattered glass. Movement on the ridge. She dropped to the floor, rolled to her stomach, and spotted him, the enemy commander, 600 yards out. Black turban, silver watch, radio in hand, barking orders, gesturing towards sections of the base. And every time he pointed, mortar followed. He was the brain behind the chaos, and he had to die. Rodriguez's body was 40 yards away, slumped beside a Leupold-scoped M24 sniper rifle, untouched. Elena had studied that rifle for months, memorized its specs, adjusted pretend wind calculations in her head when no one was watching. She had never fired one, but that didn't mean she didn't know how. She ran, head down, dirt kicking up from machine gun bursts that chased her feet. She didn't think, didn't breathe, just moved. The kind of movement that doesn't ask permission, that just knows. This is the moment. Elena reached Rodriguez's side. He was alive, barely, moaning, unconscious. She slid behind the concrete lip, checked the rifle chamber, adjusted the parallax, windage, elevation point 612 yards, 8 miles per hour crosswind, 94 degrees Fahrenheit, low humidity. She whispered to herself, "Patience, Mia." Her grandfather's voice echoed. In her mind, the New Mexico hills, hunting at dawn, a child's hands learning the weight of a trigger. The crosshairs rested just beneath the man's sternum. She fired. One breath. One shot. Through the scope, she saw the commander snap backward, his radio flying from his hand. Then, nothing. No more mortar calls. No more orders. And then, silence. The enemy hesitated. Confused. And then, fled. The courtyard went quiet, except for the crackling of flames and the low groans of the dying. Marines stared at her like they were seeing a ghost. Elena Vasquez, the supply girl, had just saved them all. She didn't celebrate, didn't explain, just lowered the rifle and walked back inside. But that shot echoed further than she'd ever imagined. 6 months later, she vanished. The safe house was beige, sterile, fluorescent lights and cigarette smoke. A hum of air conditioning that couldn't kill the stench of tension. She sat across from a man who called himself only Control. American accent, brown eyes, forgettable face. He slid a folder across the table. Surveillance drone stills. The shot from Kandahar. Her shot. "We've been watching you," he said. You don't exist anymore. Her name, her records. All gone. A fake discharge. A fake college enrollment. Elena Vasquez was now legally studying accounting in New Mexico, living in a one-bedroom apartment. Boring, invisible, safe. But the woman sitting here wasn't Elena anymore. Control slid her. Another folder. A new name. A new face. Passports. Licenses. Documents designed to melt in water. Sarah Chun, he said. Born in San Francisco. No military record. No next of kin. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, from understanding. You erased me. Control leaned in. We gave you a beginning. Your real one. They trained her in a mountain facility that technically didn't exist. She learned to think like prey, to hunt like a predator. Camouflage in daylight. Languages, psychology, physics that accounted for humidity, elevation, and pressure. Her instructor, Reaper, said, sniping isn't about killing. It's about solving a problem that no one else can. And her first real problem? His name was Halel Hassan, a bomb maker. 200 Americans dead, hiding in Peshawar. Surrounded by children. She had 3 seconds to take him out. One window. One shot. 11 days underground. Sewage tunnel, motionless. Rats crawling over her thighs. She hadn't blinked in 10 minutes. Rainwater and protein bars. Stench of human waste soaking her skin. Waiting. Day 12, 6:47 a.m. Through a narrow shooting gap. She watched the balcony. There he was. Hassan. 3rd floor. White robe. Checking the sky like he always did. But this time, a child, a little girl, in a yellow dress ran into the frame, chasing a bird, stepping directly into Elena's crosshairs. She had 0.2 seconds. Elena moved her aim. 2.3 inches. The bullet passed so close it moved the girl's hair. Hassan dropped. Severed spinal cord. Dead before he hit the ground. Elena broke the rifle down. Voices above. Chaos. Boots on pavement. They had seen the muzzle flash. She ran, through sewage, through gunfire, through men who died without screams. A pistol in one hand, knife in the other. Her exit, a drainage canal feeding the Kabul River. When she emerged, she was soaked in blood, none of it hers, and she didn't stop moving until she was across the border. The child on the balcony would never know how close she'd come. That a woman, nameless and unseen, had threaded a bullet between life and death and chosen life. She stood alone. But what came next? No one expected. It was supposed to be a clean exfil. No witnesses. No footprints. Just a ghost sliding back into the wind. But nothing about Mogadishu was ever clean. 2 years after the shot that made her disappear, Elena was perched on the 8th floor of a bombed-out hotel. Her hands cradled a suppressed sniper rifle, unmarked, untraceable. The mission was standard. Provide overwatch for SEAL, Team 6 as they extracted 3 American hostages from a warlord's compound. She'd spent 14 hours motionless, lying beneath shattered beams and peeling wallpaper, watching the target building 6 blocks away. Her scope tracked the enemy, 47 militants, armed to the teeth, moving like they owned the city. She counted them, memorized their faces, filed them into neat categories. Threat, no threat, probable threat. Her body was still, but her mind was a storm, wind drift, humidity, barrel temperature, entry wounds, escape paths, fallback options. Street children with empty eyes wandered the alley below, a constant reminder of how easy it was to miss the line between innocence and danger. At 0213, the SEALs moved. 6 shadows swept into the compound like whispers of death. Muzzle flashes blinked in rhythm. Elena covered their advance, dropping 3 hostiles with barely a breath between shots. The hostages were located on the 2nd floor. Alive, restrained, terrified. It was going smoothly. Too smoothly. At 0220. The trap was sprung. The explosion came from beneath. A pressure-triggered IED, buried in the foundation, tore the compound's heart out. Walls collapsed. Dust and screams filled Elena's scope. Then came the swarm. Militants poured from alleys and rooftops. The SEALs were pinned. Inside the rubble, extraction bird shot down. Radios crackling with static and blood. Overwatch, this is Trident 6, came the calm voice of Commander Marcus Kane. We are surrounded. Multiple wounded. Immediate assistance requested. Elena's jaw tightened. She emptied her first mag. 7 hostiles dropped. The second 6 more, including an RPG team. But they kept coming, like cockroaches out of the walls. 100 yards, 75, 50. Her third magazine. 3 rounds left. She stared through the scope at the kill zone, at the blood-soaked streets of Mogadishu, at the shadows moving in on America's finest. And she did something no sniper is ever trained to do. She stood up. She left the nest. Snipers don't run into battles. They stay hidden. They don't leave high ground. They don't abandon their rifle. But Elena had never been trained to follow rules. Her pistol, a Glock 19, modified with a threaded barrel and steel internals, was already in her hand. 17 rounds in the mag. 1 in the chamber. She descended the hotel like a ghost on fire. 8 floors of debris, collapsed stairwells, and cracked concrete. Her body flowed around destruction like it was part of her. Down. Always down. By the time she hit the street, the firefight was deafening. She moved through it like wind through reeds. The first target, 2 shots to the chest. The second, a clean headshot. The third, hiding behind a burned-out vehicle, crouched and waiting. She flanked, fired, kept moving. Every shot was a choice. Every step was a risk. She had 400 yards of open, death-soaked ground between her and the SEALs. She cut through it like a blade. When her pistol ran dry, 14 bodies marked her path. The last 30 yards were suicide. No cover, no angle, open ground under enemy fire. But she sprinted anyway. 4 more shots. 4 more dead. Then she dove through. A blown-out window. The room was wreckage and blood. Kane had a wounded teammate propped against the wall, his hands soaked crimson as he tried to stop the bleeding. The rest of the team was scattered, firing from shattered openings. Low on ammo and running out of time, Elena stood in the center of the chaos, covered in dust and blood, face unreadable, empty pistol in her hand. "Who the hell are you?" Kane demanded. "Someone here to get you out." No hesitation. No salute. Just the words of someone who knew the price of time. She drew her combat knife and moved to the window. Scanned. Calculated. Flanked. How many wounded? 2 mobile. 1 serious. Kane replied. "Choppers are down." "No comes. We're boxed in." "Not anymore." Elena took point. The retreat through Mogadishu was fire and fury, and Ash thought Elena led them like she'd lived there for years. Every alley, every rooftop, every choke point. She had memorized it all during her 14-hour overwatch. She guided them through like a phantom, turning ambush into advantages. When snipers appeared in windows, she pointed and SEALs fired. When militants blocked escape routes, she flanked and cleared them herself. They moved like a single organism, deadly, bleeding, silent. 2 miles to the fallback LZ, an abandoned soccer field, a second chopper waiting. But every step was war. By the time they arrived, Elena had taken shrapnel to the shoulder and a grazing shot across her ribs. She never slowed. She got every man to that field. Everyone. Kane saw her again, 3 days later. She was alone in the mess hall at a base in Djibouti, reading a paperback novel and picking at an MRE. Still, no name tape, no rank insignia, no unit patch. Just a woman in military fatigues who'd vanished into the crowd the moment the helicopter lifted off. Kane walked up to her table, straightened his spine, and rendered a salute sharper than any he'd given in 2 decades. Elena looked up. "I don't know who you are," he said quietly, "but you're the finest warrior I've ever served with." She returned the salute, nodded once, and walked away. Back into the shadows. In the years that followed, Kane would tell the story. Not often, not in official reports, but around fire pits, in whispered conversations with those who understood. The cost of silence. He called her the shot in the dark. A guardian, a ghost, one who appeared when the world was falling apart and disappeared just as quickly. And always, he ended the story with the same words, sometimes the best of. "Yours are the ones whose names we'll never know." She hadn't spoken in hours, but her mind wouldn't shut off. The plane hummed around her, cold and metal, cutting through the night sky over the Black Sea. Elena sat near the rear, her breathing slow, steady, almost calm. But inside, a storm churned. She could still hear the child scream, the girl on the balcony in Peshawar, yellow dress fluttering in the wind, watching a man she called Baba collapse from a bullet she never saw. Elena hadn't missed. She never missed. But threading a shot within inches of a civilian, even one that saved her life, it left something behind. Something she hadn't quite named yet. Regret? No, doubt. Not quite doubt. It was weight. A quiet, permanent weight. And it had followed her across every border since Control had once told her. Regret is for people who plan on stopping. Elena had never planned on stopping. But that didn't mean the silence didn't grow louder each time she made it home. If you could call anywhere home anymore, this mission was different. Not because of the target. She'd eliminated 17 already, each more protected than the last. Not because of the method. Sniping, infiltration, escape routes, extraction schedules. Those were routine now. It was different because the intel felt personal. They wanted her to kill someone she used to know. His name was Captain Elias Ward, former Green Beret, highly decorated, once hailed as a hero of the Iraq surge. Elena had never met him directly, but she remembered the name from years back, a joint training op in Montana. The same week, Reaper taught her how to shoot through a windshield without deflection. Ward had taught counterinsurgency. Tall, cold-eyed, the kind of man who made people straighten just by entering a room. He was respected, feared, and then gone. Disappeared 3 years ago during an advisory mission in Syria. Now, he was back, only not as a soldier, not even as a traitor. Something worse. According to intercepted comms and satellite footage, Ward had defected to a rogue PMC operating out of Georgia, Black Rain. They weren't mercenaries. They were ghosts gone rogue. Former spec ops turned vigilantes, selling war to the highest bidder. They trained warlords, rigged elections, moved weapons like currency. And Ward was their spine. Their strategist thought he knew American tactics inside, out, and worse, he was starting to predict counter-terror ops. 3 CIA-backed teams had already gone dark in Eastern Europe, and Control believed he was the reason. No courtroom, no arrest warrant. They just needed him gone. Elena's job was to end him before his intel brought down more good men, but in her gut, it didn't sit right. This wasn't a terrorist with blood on his hands. This was a decorated soldier, a man who'd once stood where she stood, fought for what she fought for, but then again, so had she. And maybe that's what scared her most. The insertion point was a forested hill 12 miles outside Batumi. Ward's compound wasn't a fortress. It didn't need to be. High fences, thermal camps, drones overhead. He trusted his obscurity more than his firepower. That was the first sign he'd changed, or maybe the sign he hadn't changed enough. Alana approached on foot. No backup, no extraction until confirmation. She wore a ghillie suit tailored for wet conifer woods, crawling slow, careful, an inch at a time. She'd spent 3 nights in the mud before even glimpsing him. He walked like a soldier still. Same stride, same posture. But his eyes, they were different. Not hard, hollow. Through her scope, she tracked his movements. Backyard, satellite phone, coffee at dawn. Always alone, always thinking. He never looked over his shoulder. That was the second sign. Elena waited for the moment. Routine is what kills men like him. Same steps, same paths, same time. On night 4, she had the shot. Range, 432 yards. Wind, negligible. Movement, none. But she hesitated, not out of mercy, not confusion, just something else. Ward lit a cigarette, took one drag, and said, out loud, "You gonna take the shot, or do I have to ask twice?" Elena froze. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just looked out into the trees. "I know. You're out there," he said. "Took you longer than I expected." She lowered the rifle. That weight in her chest returned. She stepped out of the tree line. Not stupid, not exposed. Just seen. The conversation lasted 27 minutes. No shouting, no threats. Just 2 ghosts acknowledging each other under a broken sky. Ward poured her a cup of coffee. No words until she took a dot. Then he said, "You think I sold out?" She didn't answer. "I didn't," he continued. "America sold itself." He explained it all. The fake missions, the double blind ops, the allies turned enemies and back again. He'd watched entire villages burn because of misread coordinates and politicians who would never see a battlefield. "I got tired of pretending," he said. Elena stared at him. "And this is better?" He didn't flinch. "No, but at least I know who I'm killing." The air was thick. Not with hostility, with honesty. She wanted to believe he was lying, but part of her wasn't sure anymore. That scared her more than the gun on his hip. When she finally stood, coffee untouched, Ward nodded. "I'll be here till dawn. After that, you'll never find me again." She paused. "You're wrong about one thing," she said. "What's that?" "I don't miss." The shot came at 5:14. Clean, precise. Through the window of his study, where he'd returned alone. He died sitting upright, eyes open. Like he'd been waiting, like he'd made peace with whatever. Elena decided that she didn't say anything on exfil. Didn't sleep for 2 days. Control didn't ask questions, just nodded. Mission complete. But that night, in the silence of a safe house bathroom, Elena stared at herself in the mirror for a long time. The person looking back didn't flinch, but didn't smile either. She stared at the photo longer than she meant to. It was worn, a little faded at the edges. A girl, maybe 10 years old, standing beside an old man on a porch in New Mexico, both smiling. A dusty Winchester leaned against the railing behind them. Elena kept it tucked inside a hollowed-out copy of The Old Man and the Sea. She didn't take it out often. Didn't need to, but sometimes, in between the blood and silence, she needed to remember who she'd been before. She became what she was, because some missions didn't leave scars on the skin. They left something deeper. And this next one, it would tear at her in ways she hadn't prepared for. The intel package came with no briefing. Just a thumb drive, a burner phone, and a name. Anya Kovalenko, Russian-born, former FSB, now a top-tier surveillance specialist working with a breakaway intelligence cell operating inside Ukraine. She wasn't a terrorist. She didn't carry a rifle. She didn't plant bombs, but she found people operatives, assets, defectors, and delivered their locations to men who made them disappear. 12 CIA contacts had gone dark across 3 countries. No traces, no patterns. Except one. Anya's name kept surfacing in the metadata. Elena's assignment was simple. Find her. Eliminate her. But as the files loaded on her laptop, something felt off. The photos didn't match the profile. Anya wasn't hardened. She wasn't cold-eyed or militant. She looked like someone who should have been grading papers in a university library. Brown hair, sharp glasses, quiet smile. That smile haunted Elena for reasons she couldn't explain. She dug deeper. That's when she found it, hidden in a secure UN database. 5 years ago, Anya had worked for a refugee tracing project. Her job was to reconnect children lost in war with surviving family members. Hundreds of reunions. Lives rebuilt. The trail only went dark after her younger brother, Nikolai, was killed in a drone strike outside Grozny, a strike coordinated by NATO intelligence. That was when she stopped looking for lost people and started helping others make them disappear. Now she was working for a ghost cell in Odessa, a team of rogue analysts feeding names to the highest bidder. Anya wasn't pulling triggers, but she was deciding who got hunted. Elena was one of those people. Odessa was cold that week. Gray waves pounded the shore. The sky hung low like wet concrete. Elena moved through the city unnoticed, blending into back streets and tram stops. Number. Digital signature. No calls. No patterns. She found Anya on the second day, emerging from a cafe with a paper bag of groceries. No bodyguards, no armored cars. Just a parka, headphones, and a scarf wound tightly against the wind. Elena tailed her across 7 blocks. Every movement was documented. Every habit cataloged. But none of it added up. This wasn't an operative hiding in plain sight. This was someone trying to look invisible because she didn't want to be seen by what she'd become. Anya wasn't hunting people for power. She was doing it for revenge. And that made her dangerous in a different way. Not evil. Not cruel. Just broken. Elena recognized the look in her eyes when she thought no one was watching, because she'd seen it in her own reflection. She had the shot. Lined up 3 times. First, rooftop 300 meters out. Wayne in her favor. Second, cafe window, back of the head. Clean exit. Third, tram station, broadside. Crowded, but manageable. She didn't take any of them. Each time, something stopped her. Something small, quiet, unforgivable. It wasn't doubt. It was the idea that maybe, just maybe, this woman didn't need to die. Maybe she needed something else. Something Elena didn't remember how to give. Still, the directive was clear. The longer she waited, the more compromised the mission became. She gave herself 1 more day. At 3:20, Elena broke into Anya's apartment. No alarms. No dogs. No tripwires. Just a keypad, a journal by the door, and a hallway lined with black and white photographs of war zones. Not of soldiers. Of civilians. Children. Mothers. Men carrying the wounded through bombed-out streets. She moved quietly, checking rooms. In the kitchen, she found stacks of hard drives, notes, encryption logs. No weapons. No escape routes. Just raw data. And then, Anya's voice behind her. I thought you'd come yesterday. Elena turned slowly. Anya stood in the doorway in pajamas, her eyes bloodshot but calm. No fear. Just weariness. I made tea, she added. You want some? Elena didn't move. You know what I came here to do. I know. Why didn't you run? Anya gave a soft, humorless smile. You know why. Silence stretched between them. Long. Heavy. I never pulled a trigger, Anya said finally. But I know what I caused. I thought, maybe if I helped make them disappear, I'd feel less helpless. Did it work? No. They sat across from each other. Two women on opposite ends of the same war, both transformed by grief, shaped by ghosts. Elena asked her why. Anya didn't flinch. They killed my brother for the same reason I helped kill yours. Because we were numbers. Blips on a satellite screen. Collateral. I just wanted to give those blips names again. Elena thought about the drone footage of her own shot in Kandahar. The body of a man mid-fall. A red mist caught by a satellite from space. She hadn't even known his name. She looked at Anya. What would you do if I walked out right now? Anya didn't blink. Leave the door unlocked. What if I didn't? I wouldn't beg. Elena stood slowly. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a flash drive. Set it on the table. Everything on you. Cleaned. Redacted. The only copy. Anya stared. Why? Elena didn't answer, but Anya whispered something as she left. A sentence Elena would carry for the rest of her life. Don't let them turn you into the thing they needed you to kill. Control wasn't pleased. She didn't lie. Didn't make excuses. Just handed him an empty report and said, "Target neutralized." He stared at her for a long time. Didn't speak. Just watched. Finally he said, "You hesitated." She nodded once. "I chose." "You're not paid to choose." "No," she said. "I'm not." Control didn't fire her. Didn't reassign her. Just closed the file and said, "Be ready for the next one." But Elena knew something had changed, in him, and in her. That night, she pulled the photo from the book again. The little girl. The old man. The rifle in the background. She looked at her own hands. Steady. Calloused. Deadly. But not. Empty. Not yet. She tucked the photo away and whispered something to the darkness. "I haven't lost everything." She hadn't spoken in 3 days. Not even to herself. Not since the safe house in Warsaw. Not since she walked away from Control's glare and the silence that said you're still useful. But now we're watching. Now she was in Libya. Dust everywhere. Heat like a furnace. Flies that didn't care if you were alive or dead. This mission didn't come with a file. No printed dossier. No satellite feed. Just a single voice over a scrambled call. There's a man named Farid Youssef. He's not a target. He's a key. What that meant she wasn't told. Only that she was to find him, protect him, and if necessary, extract him. And that no one else knew she was there. Even the Americans operating nearby didn't know. Especially them. Because Youssef had information. No one could be trusted with. Not even allies. Not yet. It started like a rescue. Turned into a betrayal. Ended in fire. Youssef was a data analyst once. Then a double agent. Then something in between. He'd worked for the Libyan Interior Ministry before it collapsed. Now, he was a ghost moving through what was left of Tripoli, carrying in his head a list of names. Names of men who had funded, trained, and armed foreign fighters across Africa and the Middle East. Names of men with medals on their chests and blood on their hands. And tonight, someone was coming to kill him before that list could be shared. Elena found him inside an abandoned textile factory on the outskirts of the city. He was younger than she expected. Late 30s. Wore glasses held together with tape. Hands shook when he poured water. But his eyes were clear. The kind that had seen too much and refused to look away. "You're American?" he asked. "No." "You're not local?" "No." "Then what are you?" Elena met his gaze. "Insurance." She fortified the factory before sunset. Choke points. Escape routes. Kill zones. She knew this drill better than she knew her own face. Youssef watched her from the shadows. "You don't talk much," he said. "I talk when it matters." "And who decides when it matters?" "I do." A pause. "That's lonely." She didn't answer. He smiled. "Just a little. I was a father once. Before the war. Before all this." My daughter used to sit at the window and name the stars. She believed they were souls waiting to be born. Elena's hands froze on the trigger of a claymore. He continued. She was 6. She asked me once why the stars didn't fall. What did you say? She asked quietly. I said they do. We just don't always notice. They came at 1:12. Black trucks. No lights, no engine noise. Professionals. 12 of them, by her count. 2 teams flanked left. 1 breached the front. The first died on entry claymore. The second took a round to the neck. But the third got close. Elena moved like a wraith. Her suppressed pistol hissed death in the dark. She didn't miss. She didn't pause. But they were prepared. One of them had a thermal scope. Spotted her through the steel vents. She took a hit to her thigh. Clean pass-through. Muscle only. But enough to slow her down enough to make things complicated. She limped toward Yusef. Blood soaking her pants. We're moving, she said. There's nowhere to go, he replied. There's always somewhere. She blew the rear wall with 2 charges. Dust. Screaming metal. Smoke thick enough to buy them 90 seconds. They ran. Through alleys. Over collapsed roofs. Elena's leg burned like fire, but she didn't stop. Didn't bleed out. She was used to bleeding by now. The safe house was 2 kilometers away. They made it halfway. Before the drone found them, it wasn't military. Smaller. Civilian modified. But weaponized. Elena shoved Yusef into a drainage ditch just the drone opened fire. She rolled after him, bullets chewing concrete inches from her face. They lay there, breathing, hearts in their throats. You still sure you're not American? He asked. Panting. Elena gave him a sideways glance. Would it matter? No, he said, but it'd explain the stubbornness. The final standoff came inside a burned-out school. Elena had 2 mags left, 1 knife, and 1 grenade. Yusef had nothing but the list in his head, and the knowledge that no one else could carry it forward. They barricaded the hallway. Waited. 5 men entered. One by one, Elena took them down. But the sixth was different. She didn't hear him until he was on top of her. They fought hand to hand, knives clashing in the dark. She felt his blade slash her shoulder. Her elbow cracked his jaw. His knee struck her ribs. They collapsed together. She reached for her pistol. Empty. His blade rose, and then Yusef appeared behind him. He didn't stab. He didn't shoot. He pushed, shoved a man through a window. Glass shattered. A scream. Then silence. Elena stared at him. He stared back, hand shaking. I'm not built for this. Neither was I, she said. They made it to the safe house at dawn. Her blood was dry now. The pain dulled, but her eyes felt older. She handed him off to the contact. A woman in civilian clothes. French accent. Sharp eyes. Unmarked. Car. You trust her? Yusef asked. No. But you're giving me to her. She's your only shot. He hesitated, then leaned in. My daughter's name was Layla. Elena nodded. Tell her. He whispered but stopped. I know. Elena said and then he was gone. She stood on the rooftop that night, alone. Blood crusted on her arm. The stars above flickered, like quiet watchers. She remembered his words. Why don't the stars fall? Maybe because some of them already had, and maybe some hadn't landed yet. She didn't feel like a soldier anymore. She wasn't a civilian either. She was something in between. A star halfway to the earth, still burning, still falling, but not gone yet. She was already gone before the bomb went off. That was the rule. Never stay. Never wait for the echo. Deliver the shot. Fade like smoke. But this time, she lingered. Because this time, the target wasn't a man. It was a choice. It started in Berlin. Neutral ground for men who claimed to be peacekeepers but operated in shadows. Her target was Lucien Marek. Publicly, a private security contractor. Privately, a coordinator for black market arms networks stretching from Sudan to Chechnya. The kind of man who hosted fundraisers in Milan by day and sold shoulder-fired missiles to child soldiers by night. CIA had tried to trap him legally. Didn't stick. Interpol tried surveillance. He bought their tech teams before the servers finished booting. So they called Elena. No paper trail. No signature. No questions. But there was a complication. Marek's 12-year-old son, Luka. She spotted the boy. On day one, Marek took him everywhere. Museums, parks, cafes. It wasn't for appearances. He wasn't a shield. He was his father's reason. And that made things harder. Through her scope, Elena saw the way Marek looked at him, the way his face softened, the way the world's noise faded when the boy was near. This was a monster, no doubt, a trafficker of chaos, a man responsible for hundreds of civilian deaths. But he held his son's hand like any father, and for the first time in a long time, Elena hesitated before she even loaded her rifle. The strike window was tight. Marek had rented out a penthouse suite overlooking the Brandenburg Gate. He'd be alone at 7:43 p.m. for exactly 4 minutes. According to his routine, just enough time to open his balcony doors, light a cigar, and check his messages. That was her moment. Elena had her position set 4 days in advance. A ventilation shaft inside a renovation site across the street. A perfect line of sight, masked by scaffolding. She rehearsed the shot 12 times, factored for glass reflection, angle distortion, and wind shear from passing trains. She never missed. But as she locked the crosshairs on Marek's chest, she caught movement. A shadow behind him. Small. Barefoot. The boy. Not beside him. Not shielded. Behind him. Any deviation, even by a hair, and the bullet might overpenetrate. And find the child. Elena waited. 1 second. 2. Marek turned, facing away from the balcony, gesturing for his son to leave. The moment passed. She lowered the rifle, not because she couldn't make the shot, but because this time, it wasn't about the shot. It was about the fallout, about what a boy becomes when his father dies in front of him at dinner. With the city lights shining and no warning. It wasn't mercy. It was containment. Some wounds don't bleed. They breathe. She called control that night. Told him the strike had been compromised. No clean opportunity. Surveillance ongoing. He didn't question her. Just said, clock's ticking. She knew what that meant. If she didn't take the shot, someone else would. Someone who wouldn't care about the boy. Someone who might blow the entire penthouse. She had 48 hours. Elena went off script. Used a name she hadn't spoken in years. Used channels she wasn't supposed to have anymore. Called in an old favor from someone who owed her more than their life. A private jet out of Moldova. An identity scrub. A new life for a boy who didn't even know he was being hunted by association. The plan was simple. Extract the child, then deliver the father. But it was anything but simple. On day 5, she slipped into the penthouse disguised as staff. Hair up, cleaner's uniform, language flawless. She even wore a slight limp, the kind that made people look away. She found the boy in the study, reading. His eyes lit up when she offered him a chocolate bar, the kind that didn't melt easy. She sat with him, asked him about school, about dreams, about constellations. He pointed out the window. That one's Orion. She looked, smiled. That one, she said, is Scorpius? See the hook? His eyes squinted, then widened. Cool. A silence. You want to see them closer? She asked softly. From a better place? He nodded. At 3 a.m., she extracted him through the freight elevator. No noise. No alarms. No blood. She left a note in his room, folded and taped to the lamp. You are loved, always, but you don't belong in this world. The boy would wake up in a villa outside Palermo, with a new name, a guardian who spoke 6 languages and made pancakes. Marek would believe he'd been kidnapped by a rival. He would rage. He would grieve. And then, when he stepped onto his balcony 2 nights later, Elena ended it. 1 shot. Mid-chest. Clean. No over-penetration. No echo. Just silence. Control didn't ask about the child. He never did. Elena didn't volunteer it. But she kept a photo of the boy pointing at the sky. And on nights when the weight got too much, when the blood pooled at the back of her mind, she took it out. Not to feel better. Just to remember she hadn't forgotten. There was no metal. Number. Debrief. Just a wire transfer and silence. That's how she knew she'd done it right. Because sometimes justice isn't loud. It's the absence of a scream. The child would never name. Would never know the bullet that took his father was delayed. Because someone thought his future might still be worth saving. And that was enough. Elena never looked back at Berlin. But somewhere in the stars above it, Orion still pointed, Scorpius still curled, and for once, the crosshairs rested on nothing. She had 3 cracked ribs and a fever climbing past 102, but her hand didn't shake. The village was burning behind her. Smoke rolled across the hills like spilled ink, black and alive. Somewhere in the distance, men shouted in Arabic. A woman screamed. Gunfire barked once, then stopped. Elena didn't move. Her scope was steady. Her breath shallow. Her eyes locked on a single compound a half-mile away, where her target, a financier of death, protected by a warlord's militia, paced in front of a satellite phone, like a man who thought he was safe. He wasn't. But the woman watching him wasn't sure she cared anymore. Because something had changed. It wasn't just the fever, or the wound, or the fact that she hadn't eaten in 36 hours. It was something inside. Something cold, heavy. Something that didn't feel like exhaustion. It felt like emptiness. She remembered a time, not long ago, maybe last year, maybe 5, when she used to whisper a name before pulling the trigger. Not the target's name. Her own. Elena Vasquez, a reminder that she was still human, that someone behind the scope existed. Now, she didn't whisper anything, didn't think anything. She just executed, and that scared her more than any bullet ever. The shot broke like glass through a quiet room. The target's chest folded inward. The phone dropped. His body hit the ground, limp and final. No scream. No chase. No alarm. Elena stayed prone for a full 10 minutes before moving. Not because it was protocol, but because she couldn't. Her muscles didn't respond. Her eyes wouldn't blink. Her mind replayed the same thought on a loop. I feel nothing, and that wasn't normal. Even for her. The extraction point was 7 kilometers north. Along a dried riverbed crawling with patrols and no guarantee of transport. She moved like a machine. Low, fast, efficient. But with each step, the noise in her head grew louder. Not voices. Just absence. Like her conscience had turned off the lights and walked out. Back at the safe house, a medic tried to scold her. He stitched the ribs, gave her fluids, took her vitals. You should be dead, he said. She didn't answer. He gave her antibiotics and a warning. Rest. You go back out like this, and you're not coming back. She left the same night. Control noticed it first. During her debrief, she didn't make eye contact, didn't argue, didn't ask for the next assignment. She just sat there, like a statue carved from war. Tell me something, he said. Do you still remember why we picked you? She didn't respond. He leaned forward. You weren't the best shot. Not at first. You weren't the strongest either. But you thought you chose. You hesitated when others would have pulled the trigger. Silence. I need to know if that person's still in there. She met his eyes then, and said the one word that felt more honest than any lie. Maybe. That night, she found herself standing in front of a mirror with her knife drawn. She wasn't sure why. Not in a dramatic way. Not to do anything final. Just to look. To see if her reflection still flinched. It didn't. Not even when she pressed the flat of the blade against her throat and whispered, "Are you still in there?" The woman in the mirror didn't answer. The next mission was a gift, or maybe a test. Either way, it wasn't sanctioned by Control. It came in the form of an encrypted drive slipped under her door in Romania. No signature. No logo. Just a folder. Labeled Red Echo. Inside, photos of a camp in western Myanmar. Children, women, burned bodies. Satellite images of mass graves, and a name. Colonel Feted. Mind, Elena didn't need to read the summary. She knew exactly what kind of man he was. And she didn't wait for approval, because some monsters didn't need paperwork. The camp was 3 clicks from the border. Guarded. Remote. Forgotten. She made it to the perimeter in 2 days. Spent the third night belly crawling through brush so dense it sliced her palms raw. On the 4th, she was in position. The colonel liked to bathe at dusk. In a steel barrel beside the barracks. No cameras. No guards. Just him and his silence. When the moment came, she raised the rifle, but didn't shoot. Not yet, because something caught her eye. A boy, maybe 8, standing barefoot near the tree line, watching the colonel with quiet fury. Elena saw herself. In his stillness, in his restraint, she lowered the rifle. Waited. The boy didn't move. Just stared. And the colonel, sensing nothing, finished his bath and walked back inside. Elena watched him go, then shifted her scope toward the tree line, scanning for the boy, but he was gone. She made the shot the next night. Different angle, different timing, but the result was the same. The colonel collapsed beside the Seine. Barrel. Blood mixed with water. Elena exfiltrated before the dogs even caught the scent. 2 weeks later, Control met her in Prague. Not an op. Just a conversation. You're operating. Off script now. She sipped her tea. Said nothing. He watched her for a long time. I've seen people break, Elena. I've seen them go dark and not come back. You're close. Still, she didn't speak. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a single folded photograph. Set it on the table. A girl, 6 years old, holding a book. Looking out a window. Her name's Naya. She was one of the kids in that camp. She survived because someone took out the man who signed the kill orders. Elena stared at the photo. Something cracked inside her. Not loudly, but enough that she didn't cry. But that night, in the quiet of a foreign room with no name, she whispered something she hadn't said in a very long time. My name is Elena Vasquez. She said it again. Softer. Then lay back. And for the first time in months, she slept without dreaming of blood. She stood beneath a dusk sky in northern Syria, watching dust swirl between broken stones and ruins older than memory. No mission. No order. Just silence. For the first time in years, Elena had walked away from a kill zone, not as a ghost, but as a woman with nowhere left to disappear into. She hadn't told Control, hadn't checked in, hadn't requested extraction. She just stopped. Because eventually, even weapons grow tired of being fired. The message found her anyway, slipped into a crate of humanitarian rations at a relief outpost, folded into a med-kit. Coordinates. No signature. One line. He's alive. She didn't believe it. Couldn, single quotes T. Because the man in question Reaper, her instructor, the ghost who trained ghosts, had been declared KIA 3 years earlier after an ambush in Mosul. But the data was clear. Facial scan, gait analysis. Blood type .alive .captured .held in an off-books prison run by a Black Flag group operating between Russia and Iran. And worse. They were going to break him. Not for money, for knowledge. Reaper had trained 7 of the top deep cover operatives in NATO's kill chain, including Elena. If they turned him, even partially, he could compromise global networks. Every name, every face, every ghost, including hers. It wasn't duty that made her go. It wasn't fear. It was something more. Primal. Loyalty. Not the kind written into uniforms or medals, but the kind forged in pre-dawn sweat, whispered maxims, and months spent becoming less than human so others could live. Reaper had once told her, "You can't save the world, but you can save the ones who saved you." She remembered that now, and she moved. The prison was hidden inside a limestone quarry near the Caspian. No flag, no map. Not even locals spoke of it. Just rumors of screams in the wind. Elena arrived after dark. No rifle. No drone. Just a suppressed pistol, 2 blades, a fiber camera, and a plan that barely qualified as one. She breached through a drainage duct no wider than her shoulders, crawling for 40 minutes through rusted steel and rat nests. She emerged inside a utility tunnel and paused. Because ahead of her, 2 guards, laughing, careless, but armed. She waited for the right beat. Moved. 2 cuts. No sound. Their bodies dropped as if they'd been erased. She found Reaper on level 3. He was chained to a chair. Beard, thick. Eyes swollen, but still. Their still in. Even now, he smiled. "Took you long enough." She stepped closer. "Was waiting for a thank you." He winced. "Not in my nature." "Lucky for you," she said, cutting his cuffs. "Neither is abandonment." He tried to stand, collapsed. She caught him. No ceremony. No tears. Just 2 ghosts moving toward freedom. The exfil wasn't clean. Nothing ever is. By the time they reached the surface, sirens were wailing. Searchlights crisscrossed the night. They ran anyway. Elena firing with her offhand. Reaper leaning into her. Blood on both of them. She didn't stop. Not even when bullets cut the air inches from her spine. Not even when her arm went numb from recoil. Not even when Reaper whispered, "You don't have to do this." Because she knew something now. She wasn't just a weapon. She was the reason others lived. The extraction bird came in low. Lights off, skimming treetops. They dove in just as enemy fire shattered the rocks around them. The chopper lifted, climbing hard, tilting away from death. And as the prison faded into the black behind them, Reaper looked at her. "You're not the girl I trained anymore." "No," she said. "I'm not." He nodded. "Good." Back at his safe house in Cyprus, he slept for 2 days. Elena sat beside the window the entire time, watched ships pass in the night, counted them like prayers. When he finally woke, he asked the question she knew was coming. "What now?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "I think I'm done." Reaper studied her, not as an instructor, but as a man who knew what it cost to walk away. "You sure?" "No," she said. "But I'm tired of surviving without living." She sent. "Control a final message." 2 words, no more. There was no reply, but she hadn't expected one. That world didn't allow goodbyes, only disappearances. 6 months later, she was in the hills of New Mexico. The porch creaked beneath her boots. The rifle resting beside her wasn't for killing anymore, just for memory. A girl ran across the field, laughing, chasing a dog. Not hers, a neighbor's. But Elena smiled all the same. Inside the house, a radio played old jazz. She sipped coffee. That didn't taste like rations. And for the first time in years, The weight in her chest wasn't a ghost dot, it was peace. Somewhere in a sealed Pentagon archive. Her name didn't exist, but her story did, written in whispers, scattered across debriefings, passed in the silence between warriors who knew what sacrifice meant. They didn't say much, just this, no rank, no name, but a SEAL commander saluted her. She never asked for medals, never wanted credit, because real warriors don't fight for applause. They fight because someone must. They carry the burden others couldn't lift. And when their job is done, they don't seek recognition. They simply fade, but not forgotten. Not by those she saved. Not by those who watched her walk into fire and return quiet, wounded, but undefeated. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts, and then vanishes into the dusk, like a shot in the dark that hit exactly where it was meant to.